Have you ever had that moment when a single piece of paper changes your entire life? Mine was taped to my apartment door, a stark white sheet with bold black letters spelling "Notice of Eviction" at the top. I stood there, grocery bags cutting into my fingers as the ground seemed to shift beneath my feet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how my own sister tried to destroy the independent life I'd built, all because she couldn't stand to see me thrive on my own. The day started like any other Tuesday. I woke up in my small but perfect one-bedroom apartment, the morning light filtering through the sheer curtains I'd hung just last weekend. I loved this place, my first real home away from my family's suffocating grip. After 26 years of living under my parents' roof with my older sister Meredith's constant hovering, these 650 square feet represented something precious: freedom. I'd been here for 8 months, building a life that was entirely my own. My job as a graphic designer for a local marketing firm wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and let me do what I loved. In the evenings, I'd started taking on freelance projects, nothing major, just some logo designs and wedding invitations to build my portfolio and save for a better computer. It was my little secret, a dream I was nurturing that no one in my family would understand or support. My morning routine was sacred: coffee from the French press, a housewarming gift to myself, 15 minutes of sketching, then a quick shower before heading to work. As I gathered my things, my phone buzzed with Meredith's name on the screen. I hesitated before answering. Our conversations lately had become strained, her questions increasingly probing. "Where are you putting your money? Don't you think that apartment is too expensive? Mom says you never call anymore." Each interaction left me drained. "Hey, Mare," I answered, trying to sound upbeat as I locked my door. "Emma, thank God. I've been calling you all morning." Her voice carried that familiar edge of accusation. I checked the time. 8:05 a.m. I was in the shower. "Is everything okay?" "Mom's upset. You promised you'd come to Sunday dinner and you didn't show up again." I closed my eyes, guilt washing over me. I texted Dad. "I had a deadline for work. I couldn't make it." "You always have an excuse lately. Ever since you moved into that place, it's like you've forgotten where you came from." Her tone sharpened. "Are you even making enough to afford it?" "That neighborhood isn't safe, Emma." "I'm doing fine, Meredith," I replied, the same answer I'd given countless times. "The neighborhood is perfectly safe. I have to go or I'll be late for work. We need to talk about this." "Really talk? I'm worried about you." "There's nothing to worry about. I'm an adult, remember." I tried to keep the irritation from my voice. "I'll call Mom tonight. Promise." The call ended with her typical heavy sigh, the sound of her disapproval following me into the day. Little did I know, my sister's worry was about to become something far more sinister. The workday passed in a blur of client meetings and design revisions. My boss, Lena, stopped by my desk as I was putting the finishing touches on a brochure layout. "This looks fantastic, Emma. The client's going to love it," she said, her approval warming me from the inside. "You know, we've got a new project coming and that would be perfect for you to lead. Higher profile, better pay. Are you interested?" My heart leapt. "Absolutely. Thank you for thinking of me. You've earned it. Your work has been exceptional." She smiled. "We'll discuss details tomorrow." I practically floated through the rest of the afternoon. This was exactly what I'd been working toward: recognition, advancement, proof that I was making it on my own. I couldn't wait to get home and celebrate my small victory with takeout and wine. That's when I saw it, the eviction notice, stark and official, taped to my door. My fingers trembled as I tore it down and fumbled with my keys. Once inside, I dropped my groceries on the counter and read the notice fully, my confusion mounting with each word: unauthorized business activities, violation of rental agreement, complaints from management. 72 hours to vacate the premises. None of it made sense. I wasn't running a business from my apartment. My freelance work was minimal, a few hours at my desk with my laptop, nothing that would disturb anyone or violate any rules. There had to be a mistake. I immediately called the property manager, Jason, who I'd always had a good relationship with. He answered on the third ring, his normally friendly tone replaced with formal caution. Jason, it's Emma Lawson from 3B. There's been a huge mistake. I just found an eviction notice on my door. Yes, Ms. Lawson. I'm afraid the notice is valid. We've received evidence that you're operating a commercial enterprise from your unit, which is expressly forbidden in your lease agreement. Evidence? What evidence? I'm not running any kind of business here. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. We received detailed information from a concerned family member about your graphic design business, including dates, times, and client information. They provided screenshots of your client communications and payment receipts. The blood drained from my face. A family member. It could only be one person. My sister, I whispered. I'm not at liberty to say who contacted us, Jason replied carefully. But they were quite thorough. They even mentioned concerns about equipment fire hazards and client meetings in the building. None of that is true. My voice rose with panic. I do some freelance work on my personal laptop. That's it. I've never had clients here. There's no equipment. Please, Jason, you know me. I've been a perfect tenant. His sigh was heavy. Look, Emma, off the record. I didn't want to do this. But the information came with a threat of reporting us to the housing authority for allowing commercial activity. My hands are tied unless you can prove these allegations are false. My mind raced. How am I supposed to prove a negative? Can I at least see what evidence was provided? Come to the office tomorrow morning. We can discuss it further then. But Emma, you should know, the decision has already been made at the ownership level. After hanging up, I sank to the floor, my back against the kitchen cabinets. The groceries sat forgotten on the counter as hot tears burned down my cheeks. How could Meredith do this to me? And why? I called my parents, desperate for some explanation or support. My father answered, his voice brightening when he heard mine. Emma, we were just talking about you. Meredith mentioned you might be having some trouble with your apartment. My stomach twisted. Did she tell you she's the reason I'm being evicted? Silence stretched across the line. Honey, no one's being evicted. Meredith was concerned about some rules you might be breaking with your side business. She was trying to help before you got in real trouble. Help! I nearly shouted. Dad, she went behind my back and lied to my landlord. She made up stories about me running some kind of commercial operation. They've given me 3 days to leave. I heard muffled voices, then my mother came on the line. Emma, calm down. This is exactly why we've been worried. You're in over your head out there. In over my head? Mom, I'm being framed by my own sister. Don't be dramatic, she scolded. Meredith only told them what you've been doing. If you're being evicted, you must have broken the rules. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I haven't broken any rules. I occasionally do freelance work on my laptop. That's it. Well, Meredith said. I don't care what Meredith said. I cut her off, something I rarely did. She's lying, Mom. Why can't you see that? My mother's voice hardened. I think you need to come home, Emma. This independent living experiment clearly isn't working out. Your old room is exactly as you left it. The pieces suddenly fell into place. This wasn't about any lease violation. This was about bringing me back under their control. My sister had orchestrated my eviction to force me back home. The realization made me physically ill. I have to go, I said flatly. Think about it, Emma. You know it makes sense. Why struggle when? I ended the call before she could finish. For a moment, I sat in stunned silence, betrayal burning through me like acid. Then, determination took its place. I would not let them win. Not like this. I spent the next hour gathering every piece of evidence I could find. Bank statements showing my regular salary deposits, my lease agreement, my laptop with its minimal freelance projects. I found the original emails where I'd asked Jason if occasional freelance work would be a problem, and his response confirming that occasional home office work is perfectly acceptable. Then, heart pounding, I called Meredith. She answered with saccharine concern. Emma, I was just about to call you. Mom said you're upset. Cut the act, Meredith, I said, my voice steady despite the rage coursing through me. I know what you did. I don't know what you're talking about. But there was a note of defensiveness that betrayed her. You contacted my landlord and lied about me running a business from my apartment. You made up stories about client meetings and equipment. You got me evicted. A long pause, then, I was trying to protect you. I laughed bitterly. Protect me? From what? Being independent? Having a life that doesn't revolve around you and mom and dad. You're not ready to be on your own, Emma, she said, her voice hardening. You've always been the baby, always needed guidance. I saw those design projects you were doing. You're in violation of your lease. It was only a matter of time before you got caught. I just sped up the inevitable. Those were personal projects. And even if I did take on a few freelance jobs, that doesn't constitute running a business. You know that. It doesn't matter what I know. What matters is what your landlord believes. The pretense was gone now, her voice coldly triumphant. Just come home, Emma. Stop fighting this. The casual cruelty of it stunned me. Why are you doing this? What do you get out of keeping me under your thumb? Her voice dropped to a whisper. You don't understand. Mom and Dad are lost without you there. The house feels empty. They talk about you constantly. It's like I don't even exist anymore. Realization dawned. You're jealous. You've always been the perfect daughter, always done everything right, and yet they still worry about me more. They still call me their special girl. That's not. It is, I cut her off. You can't stand that I'm building my own life, that I might succeed without your control. So you'd rather destroy what I've built than see me thrive. I'm trying to bring our family back together, she snapped. You've been different since you moved out. Distant. Secretive. I've been independent, I corrected her. And I'm not coming back. Fix this, Meredith. Call my landlord and tell them you lied, or I swear. You'll what? She challenged. You have 3 days to pack, Emma. Be reasonable. Your job doesn't pay enough for another place, not in this market. You know that. The call ended with her telling me she'd help me move on Saturday. The audacity of it left me speechless. I spent the next hour in a daze, alternating between crying and furious pacing. Then, I took a deep breath and did what I always did when facing a design problem. I made a plan. First, I emailed Lena, explaining my situation and asking if we could move our meeting about the promotion to the next morning. Then I contacted 3 friends, asking if anyone knew of affordable housing options or temporary places to stay. Next, I drafted an email to Jason with all my evidence attached, pleading my case one more time. Finally, I drove to the one person who might understand what I was going through, my Aunt Catherine, my father's sister, who had long been estranged from the family for reasons no one discussed. Aunt Catherine lived in a charming bungalow 40 minutes outside the city. I'd only reconnected with her 6 months ago, after finding her on a genealogy website I'd been using for a personal project. Our secret meetings had become a lifeline for me, a glimpse into a different kind of family dynamic. She opened the door, concern etched on her face as she took in my tear-stained cheeks. Emma? What's happened? I collapsed into her embrace, the story spilling out between sobs. She listened without interruption, her arm around my shoulders as we sat on her porch swing. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Your mother and sister did the same thing to me, you know, she finally said. I looked up in shock. What? She nodded. 20 years ago. I was dating someone they didn't approve of. Your mother convinced my boss I was stealing from the company. By the time I cleared my name, I'd lost my job and my reputation in town was ruined. That's why I moved away. Why would they do that? Control, she said simply. Your mother can't stand anyone in her orbit having independence. And Meredith learned from the best. What did you do? A small smile crossed her face. I fought back. And then I built a life they couldn't touch. She squeezed my hand. Which is exactly what you're going to do. For the next 2 hours, we strategized. Aunt Catherine made calls to friends in real estate and legal circles. By the time I left, I had the name of a tenant rights attorney and 3 potential apartments to look at the next day. One more thing, Aunt Catherine said as I was leaving. I've been meaning to show you something. She led me to her home office and pointed to a framed certificate on the wall, a business license for Catherine Lawson Design Studios. You're a designer too? I gasped. For 30 years now, she smiled. Talent runs in our blood, just not the branch of the family your mother married into. I've been watching your work on Instagram. You're better than I ever was. You follow me online? Why didn't you say anything? I was waiting for the right time. She pulled out a business card and handed it to me. I'm looking for a junior partner. Someone with fresh ideas. The timing wasn't right before, but now. I stared at the card, possibilities exploding in my mind. Are you serious? Deadly. The pay is better than what you're making now, and I own the building. There's a loft apartment upstairs that goes with the job. No family members can get you evicted. I drove back to my apartment with a new sense of purpose, Aunt Catherine's offer humming through me like electricity. I still needed to clear my name with the current landlord. I didn't want an eviction on my record, but for the first time since seeing that notice, I felt like I had options. The next morning, I met with Jason at the property management office, armed with my evidence and a new confidence. I appreciate you meeting with me, I began, setting my folder on his desk. I've brought documentation proving I'm not running a business from my apartment. He looked uncomfortable. Emma, like I said, my hands are tied. The decision came from above. I understand. But before you finalize anything, you should know that my sister, who I believe is your source, had a motive to lie. I took a breath. She wants me to move back home. She fabricated this entire situation. I showed him my bank statements, demonstrating that my income came from my regular job, with only occasional small deposits from freelance work. I showed him my email history, proving I'd asked about freelance work when I first moved in and received his permission. I showed him my digital workspace, clearly not the setup of someone running a commercial enterprise. As he reviewed the evidence, his expression shifted from skepticism to concern. This is troubling. The information we received was very specific. Screenshots of business transactions, client lists, even photos of what was claimed to be your in-home studio setup. May I see these photos? I asked. He hesitated, then turned his monitor toward me. On the screen was indeed a photo of a home design studio with large printing equipment, multiple computer monitors, and professional lighting. That's not my apartment, I said immediately. Look at the wall color, the flooring. My place has beige walls and carpet, not hardwood and blue paint. Jason frowned, scrutinizing the image. These could have been digitally altered. Or they could be stock photos or someone else's studio entirely, I pointed out. Here. I pulled out my phone and showed him recent photos of my apartment, including my small desk with its single laptop. This is my business operation. One computer, one sketchbook. His expression hardened. If what you're saying is true, this is a serious false complaint. It is true, I insisted. And I can prove my sister was behind it. I pulled out my phone and played a recording of my conversation with Meredith from the previous night, the part where she admitted to contacting the landlord and her reasons why. Jason listened, his face growing increasingly troubled. When it ended, he sat back in his chair. I need to take this to the property owner. I understand. All I'm asking for is a fair chance to defend myself. He nodded slowly. Wait here. The 20 minutes he was gone felt like hours. When he returned, his expression was grave, but determined. The owner has agreed to rescind the eviction notice, pending a formal inspection of your unit to verify your claims. He handed me a document. This retracts the previous notice. The inspection will be tomorrow at 10 a.m., if that works for you. Relief flooded through me. That's perfect. Thank you, Jason. Don't thank me yet. He lowered his voice. This situation has raised red flags about our eviction processes. We should have verified the claims before issuing the notice. I'm sorry about that. As I left his office, my phone buzzed with a text from Lena, confirming our meeting about the promotion. Things were looking up, but I wasn't done yet. My family situation needed resolution. Instead of going straight to work, I drove to my parents' house. It was time for a confrontation I'd been avoiding for years. Both my parents and Meredith were home, a stroke of luck I hadn't counted on. They looked surprised to see me, my mother immediately launching into a cheerful monologue about how they'd start clearing out my old room. I'm not moving back home, I interrupted firmly. In fact, I'm here to tell you that I know what Meredith did, and I fixed it. The eviction notice has been rescinded. The silence was deafening. My father looked confused, while my mother and Meredith exchanged glances. "What are you talking about?" my father asked. I told them everything, the false allegations, the fabricated evidence, my meeting with Jason, and the recording of Meredith's confession. "You recorded me?" Meredith hissed. "That's illegal." "Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to a recording," I replied calmly. "I learned that from Aunt Catherine." My mother's face hardened at the mention of her name. "You've been seeing Catherine? After all we've told you about her?" "Yes, and I've learned the truth about why she left. The same thing you tried to do to me, you did to her 20 years ago." My father looked between us, genuine confusion on his face. "Jane? What is she talking about?" I realized in that moment that my father might not have known about my mother and sister's manipulation. The thought gave me a sliver of hope that not everything in my family was toxic. "Tell him, Mom," I challenged. "Tell him how you and Meredith tried to force me back home by getting me evicted. Tell him how you did the same thing to Aunt Catherine 20 years ago." My mother's face flushed with anger. "You don't understand family loyalty, Emma. Everything I've done has been to keep this family together." "No," I said sadly. "Everything you've done has been to keep us under your control. There's a difference." Meredith stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You ungrateful little—" "Enough." My father's voice cut through the tension. He turned to my mother and Meredith. "Is this true? Did you try to get Emma evicted?" The look that passed between them was answer enough. My father's face crumpled in disappointment. "I can't believe this. Our own daughter. She abandoned us," my mother cried. "Just like Catherine did." "I didn't abandon anyone," I said quietly. "I grew up. There's a difference." What followed was 2 hours of painful family honesty. Years of resentment, manipulation, and control issues came to light. My father, to his credit, seemed genuinely horrified by what my mother and sister had done, both to me and to his sister years ago. By the end, it was clear that our family dynamic was broken in ways that would take years of therapy to address, if it could be fixed at all. I set clear boundaries. I would maintain a relationship with my father and give my mother and sister a chance to rebuild trust, but it would be on my terms. "I've been offered a partnership with Aunt Catherine," I told them as I prepared to leave. "I'm going to take it. It's an amazing opportunity for my career." "You'd choose her over your own mother?" My mother's voice was cold. "I'm choosing myself," I corrected her. For the first time in my life. The next day passed in a whirlwind. The inspection of my apartment went smoothly, with the property manager formally apologizing for the misunderstanding. My meeting with Lena resulted in not just a promotion, but a raise that would have made staying in my current apartment more comfortable. But as I sat in my living room that evening, surrounded by the life I'd built, I knew what my next step should be. I called Aunt Catherine and accepted her offer. "I can move in next month, if that works for you," I told her. "I want to leave this apartment properly with notice." "That's perfect," she replied warmly. "I'll start setting up your workspace. We've got some exciting projects coming in that I think you'll love." As I hung up, a text came through from my father. "I'm proud of you, Emma. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you'll let me visit your new place once you're settled." Tears pricked my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness or anger anymore. They were tears of release, of possibility. The next morning, I woke up early and stood at my window, watching the sunrise paint the sky in brilliant colors. In just 24 hours, my life had been threatened, then transformed. My sister's attempt to drag me back into the past had instead propelled me toward a future brighter than I could have imagined. I picked up my sketchbook and began to draw, ideas flowing freely. For the first time in my life, I was exactly where I was supposed to be, not in my childhood home under my family's thumb, but in a life entirely of my own design.